I had been driving for the past hour and was growing sleepy. I still had 3 hours to go before I reached my hometown, and I didn't think I was going to make it without falling asleep at the wheel. I looked at the clock on my dash. It was 2:30 a.m. I decided that I would stop at the next hotel I saw, call it a night, and head home first thing in the morning. It wasn't long before I saw a massive-looking hotel at the next exit. I drove over an old bridge, and soon I was in the parking lot of this surprisingly well-kept, large 4-story building. The hotel looked like it was built in the early 1900s. I thought it would be cool to go home in the morning and tell my friends that I had stayed the night at a wickedly creepy old hotel. Once inside, I was taken aback by the Victorian-style interior. The entrance was like an older grand ballroom. Everything was pristine and clean, with huge chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, illuminating the ground level with a warm amber glow. I checked in at the front desk and was shocked to learn that I would have to pay $225 for a room. This wasn't your ordinary cheap hotel. It turns out it was a historical hotel. But since I was already there, I decided to just pay for the room and take the hit. My room was on the 4th floor, but considering how small and antiquated the elevators were, I decided to take the stairwell just to be safe. When I got to the top of the large staircase, I noticed that my room was at the end of the hallway. Once in my room, I was quite delighted at how nice it was. It definitely had a certain nostalgic appeal despite the old musky feel of the place, which kind of reminded me of an old library. Deciding to call it a night, I got into bed and was soon sound asleep. Sometime during the night, it began to storm. I was woken by thunder and rain splattering on the windows, followed by flashes of lightning. I rolled over as another flash of lightning shot through the room, illuminating a figure at the foot of my bed. But as quickly as the shadow appeared, it was gone. Startled, I sat up in bed, clearing my thoughts, and reluctantly got out of bed to investigate. I quickly dismissed this as a figment of my overactive imagination. The hotel was beautiful in its own right, but it held a lot of old, creepy elements within its walls that had somehow seeped their way into my consciousness. Not finding anything out of the ordinary, I went back to sleep as the thunderstorms grew louder. Again, after an hour or so of sleep, I was jarred awake by a sound. This time, it sounded like somebody was knocking from inside the large closet next to the bathroom. The sound was faint, but unmistakable. When I finally gathered enough courage to get up and investigate, the knocking had stopped. I stood there, staring at the door, which was ajar, imagining what could be lurking behind it. My heart began to thump in my chest as I reached for the door and swung it open. To my relief, the closet was empty. But I had heard knocking from inside the closet door. The situation was starting to feel very unsettling. Before returning to bed, I decided to check the front door. I reluctantly opened it and noticed that my hands were shaking. I poked my head out and took a quick look around. That's when I caught a glimpse of a woman. She seemed to be wearing old clothes, and her long black hair hung loosely around her face. I wondered if I was simply seeing things at this point. Maybe it was her who had knocked on my door, and I had mistakenly assumed that the sound came from the closet. Perhaps she was simply trying to find her room. I shut the door, trying to assure myself I was safe before returning to bed. As I pressed my head against the pillow, I couldn't shake the feeling that somebody was watching me. I decided to keep my eyes on the closet door, which, to my surprise, was once again slightly open. It was then that I began to feel something breathing on the back of my neck. I twisted around in a panic, only to be met by the horrifying sight of a half-decayed woman lying in the bed next to me. My heart raced as I scrambled out of the bed, adrenaline surging through my body. I ran down the hallway, my feet pounding against the floor as I descended the stairs as quickly as I could. When I reached the front desk, I gasped for breath and told the clerk that somebody had been in my room. She gave me a confused look as I mentioned it was room 404. Her face changed immediately, and she frowned, her expression apologetic. Apparently, I had been given the wrong keys by mistake. Nobody had stayed in that room for years. The hotel had limited access to room 404 due to numerous complaints about a scary woman haunting its occupants. The clerk informed me that, back in the early 1900s, a woman had died in that very room and her spirit had never left. I asked the employee to retrieve my belongings from the cursed room. I refused to return there. A new room on the first floor was assigned to me, but I knew one thing for sure. That would be the last time I ever spent the night at the Crescent Hotel.